This video is going to be a film study look at the variable run game that Clint Kubiak and the Seattle Seahawks put out there on film against the San Francisco 49ers on Saturday night. Not just controlling the game from a time of possession standpoint, but giving Robert Saleh and the 49ers defense multiple problems or questions to try to have to solve. The last 3 weeks, Seattle's averaging 171 yards on the ground between Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. They both played their role. Let's look at the film here first, see how they got this accomplished, and then near the end of the video, I'll give you some of my observations or summary points based upon the film that I've watched so far. All right, we're going to pick up here on the first possession. Obviously, it doesn't result in a score for Seattle, but it's a 21 personnel group, so you got one tight end on the field. It's Salbert lined up to the left, and this is going to be a lead zone concept. So when I say lead zone, it just means the fullback and the tailback are both going in the same direction post-snap. In this case, it's Oots, number 40, the fullback, and then Walker to the right. It's the weak side of the formation, so I generally refer to this as zone lead weak. The 49ers, I feel like, had a pretty accurate tell sometimes pre-snap on where the ball was going to go. They did a nice job of kind of spiking defensive ends to the inside and bringing safeties off the edge. You'll get the all-22 angle of this so you can see what I mean. But this this D end is going to stunt to the inside here into the B gap, and a safety who's off-screen to our right is going to kind of fill downhill and be the, quote, force player. He's the guy that's going to encourage Kenneth Walker to cut this thing back. The backside DN, for whatever reason on this iteration, wasn't chasing. Oftentimes these DNs on run concepts away on Saturday night, they were chasing the run concept from behind and trying to become a factor there. In this case, the defensive end kind of veers off to quarterback to go after Sam Darnold, and Walker uses that to his advantage, cutting it back against the grain. That defensive end is still involved in the play, don't get me wrong. Give you the all-22 angle of it. First of all, it's ball is on the left hash, and the tight end is into the boundary. So you're kind of forcing the defense to keep at least one safety from a high side alignment into the boundary. It's going to be a field side run concept, but again, I refer to it as the weak side because it's away from the tight end. Fullback, tailback combo going in the same direction. So here's what I mean when I talk about spiking the defensive end inside the B gap and then looping the safety, the field side safety, off the edge. Essentially, you're talking about a gap exchange from pre-snap to post-snap. Pre-snap, the defensive end would have been responsible for C-gap to the outside, but by stunting or spiking him to the inside, they've exchanged that. The safety flies up. You can see the fullback actually gets out to that safety pretty well. Walker smartly decides, not to bounce it this time, but to go underneath or inside of this block. I think it's a smart usage of Walker on these lead zone concepts. So he's had a tendency, and it's been an apt criticism at times of his, that he'll bounce concepts that are supposed to go downhill. I like putting him on this track, and then now his opportunity is kind of designed to either bounce it, hit it on a direct path, which is interrupted by the safety, or in this case, cut this thing all the way back. Again, it goes for 8 yards early in the game, first possession. Seattle kind of wasted it here, if you ask me, by going for it on 4th and goal from the 4, but nonetheless, they had established the tone or the pattern for how they were going to deal with the 49ers defense. Same possession, the first possession, and we're on to a 2nd and 2, so we're very next snap, in fact, and it's a 21 personnel group. One of my favorite plays, man. I call it a Wham trap. So it allows the guard and the tackle on the same side to not have to deal with the defensive tackle because you're trapping him. And what I mean by that is the fullback, in this case, Oots, is going to step down and try to trap or influence that defensive tackle to go down the line of scrimmage. So they get that accomplished in 2 ways. First of all, the guard, which is the visual key for the defensive tackle, the guard, since he's stepping down to help double on the nose, that's going to influence this defensive tackle to already step down. So you're really kind of helping Oots get accomplished his block by giving that defensive tackle a visual key to step down with. And then it kind of makes Oots' block a little bit different. You can see there is a moment in time where this defensive tackle recognizes what's happening. He's stepped down with his visual and pressure key, which is Gray Zabel, and now he recognizes there's got to be something pinning down from the outside. It's too late. Charbonnet is able to take this, bounce it outside. I think he still gets 6 yards. I will give you the all-22 angle of this one. Wham trap's one of my favorite plays because it's irregular. Is it zone? Is it gap scheme? A little bit of both, if you ask me. It's a predetermined double team with, in this case, the left guard and the center. We're talking about Zabel and Sundell. At the same time, you allow the play side tackle to immediately move up to the second level. So you're not having to allocate either the guard, play side guard, or play side tackle for the defensive tackle. A very rare, anomalous concept that you don't normally see unless you're talking about a typical trap. In any case, Cooper Kupp and the wide receivers in this game, I think, did a really nice job of working, not just working with initial contact, but just trying to stay on guys and give Charbonnet and Walker a little bit of an extra lane. You can see Kupp just, I thought initially when I saw this live, I thought maybe they were going to call this a hold. They actually called a very similar block here later on in the game that I'll show you on Gray Zabel, a hold from a similar fall by an inside linebacker. Goes for 6 yards again on the first possession. Unfortunately, Seattle was unable to come away with points here. We'll move to the second possession, still scoreless. And this is going to be the first touchdown for the only touchdown of the game, I should say. It's the Charbonnet 27-yard run that he kind of winds back to the tight end side. Why does this work? I've got a lot of thoughts or theories about this one. Number one, they're motioning Cooper Kupp across. And so they've caught the 49ers in man coverage, and the Seahawks, know it. All right, so that corner tracked across, I believe it's Renardo Green, when Cooper Kupp motioned from the boundary to the field. I'll give you the all-22 angle so you can see what I mean. The initial flow for Charbonnet is to the right, the trip side, our right-hand side of the screen. But he's going to bring this all the way back, and it puts tremendous stress on the boundary side inside linebacker. We're talking about this guy here. So the way that I taught this when we were playing man, if we don't have secondary force support would be your outside corner into the boundary. He's removed. He's detached to the other side of the field. You, as the boundary side inside linebacker, you cannot overflow the running back and allow him to cut back where you do not have a help defender. We're talking about all this space here that normally an outside corner would be physically in that location, both pre-snap and post-snap. It's a great read by Charbonnet. I'm not trying to minimize it at all. In addition, Barner is really getting into, I believe this is Jair Brown right here on the backside. Really gives him no good choice as far as where to go. If he jumps to the inside a little bit, Charbonnet bounces it out, which is what happens. If he stays outside and tries to force or set this thing inside, then obviously Charbonnet is going to be able to take this down the field. In my opinion, the real breakdown here from a 49ers perspective is that the boundary side inside linebacker crossed the midline, went too far to the right-hand side of the Seahawks offense. I'll give you the all-22 angle so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Huge moment in the game. They had left points on the field on their first possession, and the run game was able to generate consistent yardage, and then Charbonnet and Walker at times when they were able to get into open space just made people miss. Didn't really have to do that here. Same play, like I said, from the all-22, because watch, when Kupp motions across, that's going to bring Renardo Green with him. There's some communication occurring between this corner and this inside linebacker. I think that Clint Kubiak and the Seahawks offensive staff have absolutely manipulated the 49ers into this situation. Again, it's a 3rd and 2, a one high safety alignment. Every one high safety look isn't the best look, in order to stop the run, and this is one of them. Why? Because they're playing man. And so the structure of your defense changes a little bit, zone versus man. That's what makes it so difficult at lower levels of football to kind of vacillate between coverages. You cannot end up on the inside of this run. He has to stay with his outside arm free, if you will, to be simplistic. And you can see he's crossed over the midline, and once Charbonnet brings this back, he's just not agile enough in that moment to be able to redirect. When I say the midline, I'm talking about that blue line that I typically draw at the beginning of a play that illustrates, the center, the quarterback, in this case Darnold, and the tailback, in this case Charbonnet. They're on the midline. Gets out leveraged. Also a really nice job, I think it's by Josh Jones, the left tackle, taking his guy down. Charbonnet brings it back, bounces outside. He's got the long speed to be able to finish this off. A little bit of a hesitation move here on the other safety. I think it's Mustafa, but I could be wrong. And then bursts one more time. Cool moment to get up ahead 7-0. Should have been 10-0 at this point. Kind of a clue of things to come in terms of run game production, yards, but not necessarily points. Sometimes I pick and choose plays for whatever reason because it's ones that I enjoy breaking down. In this case, it's just a pattern that I want to try to display to you. as far as personnel groups, formations, and the plays that flow from it. So this is moving on to the third possession. It's still 7-0 Seahawks, obviously. It's a 1st and 10, and Seattle's in 21 personnel. So it's a formation that I would call slot I. The tight end, 81 Saubert, moving across right to left from the Seahawks perspective. He stays off the line as opposed to being on and this receiver stepping off. So that's why I would call it slot I as opposed to pro I where the tight end is on. In any case, this is one that Walker almost busts. It's a lead zone to the weak side, again, away from the tight end. I talked about that earlier on. I think the first play that I showed you is the under front by the 49ers defense. So under front, meaning you've got a 5 technique and a 9 technique to the tight end side. Now the Seahawks motion the tight end across. So watch these guys skip out. We're talking about this defensive end and that outside linebacker, Sam, OLB hybrid, whatever you want to call him. Those guys widen up with the motion, and then Kubiak and the offense run the football away from them, back to the field. It's a weak side run concept, away from the tight end, but you're getting the fullback off the midline. Remember, the fullback is on the midline, just like the center, quarterback, and the tailback, in this case, Walker. So the fullback can get to either side just as quickly as the other. It's a really nice job, if you ask me, consistently during the game of Sundell and or Gray Zabel, the left guard, getting up to the second level immediately. That actually is the case with Jones on the backside, the left tackle here. How quickly Sundell and then Jones are both able to get up to the second level. Actually, Jones is looking for work. He just can't find any. And these two guys are out of position to be able to fold to the inside at all. I know I got a lot of drawing there on the screen. My apologies for that. Neither of these two players is able to fold to the inside. They kind of get cut off both get cut off by the tight end. Walker almost takes this one to the house. He is really close here, if you ask me, to putting on a show here and possibly putting them up 2 scores early. As an aside, something that I'm looking forward to seeing in the divisional round and hopefully moving forward is 21 personnel under center play action concepts. As some of you may know if you've watched my content for much of 2025, one of the big formations or personnel groups and then formations for Seattle in 2025 has been 12 personnel under center play action. That's not what we get here. I just don't feel like there's as much data on 21 personnel, 2 running backs, fullback, tailback, and 1 tight end, and the under center play action game. I'm looking forward to seeing that possibly early in the game once the divisional round matchup is revealed. In any case, still onto the third possession, we flip the field into the second quarter, 12 personnel, and what I refer to as a YY trips. So both tight ends are on the same side as opposed to 1 tight end being here and 1 tight end being on the other side. That is what I would call ace. So outside zone to the tight end side with Charbonnet. And a really nice job of these 2 tight ends comboing the defensive end up to an inside linebacker who's kind of apexed out. Shaheed will also get a piece of the safety. This is another example, I think, of the 49ers. I don't want to say guessing right. They are rotating the safeties to the correct side. So I don't think that this is them reading it and reacting in this manner. I think this is a pre-snap determination based upon the personnel group, formation, and the call that the defensive coordinator has given them. In any case, Shaheed gets just enough of this safety, and out of a too high safety structure, once you get that guy blocked up, the front side safety, the boundary side corner, or corner to that side, is going to be unblocked in almost every iteration, number 1. Even though San Francisco has rolled or spun the safety down to the correct side, because Shaheed gives him just enough of a redirection, Charbonnet is able to take it to the outside, generate a big run. Both of those guys, I think, were very technical. Walker and Charbonnet, whether it was a downhill run concept, which I wasn't as big a fan of, or a toss, or in this case an outside zone out of 12 personnel that Charbonnet takes for 11 yards. That possession, the third, ended up with the long missed field goal by Myers, by the way. Here we are onto the 4th drive, and they're approaching the red zone once again. I think we're on the 25 or perhaps the 30-yard line. I'm not a huge fan of this call for various reasons. Is it possibly a hold on Gray Zabel? Sure. I just don't like where the call is made from, number 1, and the angle that the referee has, or I should say, does not. So here's Zabel. It's going to be an inside zone weak call away from the two tight ends. So when I'm saying weak, I mean Walker's path is taking him away from the two tight ends as opposed to strong. That would be to our right-hand side on the screen or the Seahawks left. So Zabel is going to immediately get up to the linebacker. He pushes slightly on the defensive tackle to help Josh Jones kind of take that guy over. We're talking about that combo here. So he gets just enough of a shove, he being Gray Zabel, on that defensive tackle to let Jones try to take him over. Sundell, once again, working up to one inside linebacker. Zabel working up to the other. I feel like this inside linebacker does a nice job of getting skinny, trying to go underneath of the block. So get his pads below Zabel's pads and reduce the surface contact area as opposed to standing straight up, right? You see you got a little bit more up right here, but he's the front side guy, so it's different. He's trying to run over the top, get skinny, and maybe Zabel holds. I'll give you the all-22 angle. You can check it out yourself. One of the guys in the Ravens Discord was like, man, I think that's a tackle, not just a hold. I disagree. I do not think that inside linebacker has put himself in position to make the tackle, although he certainly is right here, right now. What I don't like is where this call is made from. It's a 2nd and 4. You got a 5-yard gain. Again, we're on the 4th possession. It will result in a field goal for Seattle here. This is the same play from the all-22 angle. As an aside, just so you know, lower levels of football, there's another ref who's located here. The NFL has kind of removed that guy for various reasons. So this is another 12 personnel group, YY trips with both tight ends on the same side. These are the two players that are going to move up. Gray Zabel and Sundell, the center, immediately get up to the 2nd level. And I'll slow it down a couple of times and let you see Gray Zabel's approach. And then also the hold that may or may not have occurred right here, I guess, as Zabel is sliding off in a clockwise fashion. But what I really like about this player, I should say don't like, but the reason why I'm showing it to you is where this penalty comes from. Keep in mind the ball was snapped on the 25-yard line for Seattle. Zabel makes contact with this guy, around the 22. And the penalty is thrown from here. And you'll see it kind of, come from, I mean, it's a bomb by the ref. Credit him for being able to throw the football, or throw the flag like a football. But there's no way, in my opinion, he could accurately see that contact. And you lose the ref here. This contact from way back there, there's just no way. You cannot convince me that he can tell whether it's a hold or not. I felt like this was a moment where Seattle was imposing their will physically, getting things done in the run game consistently, and the refs kind of saved San Francisco here. It didn't thwart the whole drive. The very next play ended up being, I believe, a 2nd and 11 because of where the hold occurred. Seattle gets a field goal and goes up 10-0. I said in the original lead-in that this was going to be an examination of the run game. So I betray that a little bit here. This is actually the screen to Kenneth Walker on the 5th possession. We've now moved into the 3rd quarter, so Seattle's up 10-3. It's a screen, but the way that Seattle sets this up, I think, is exquisite and I think is very intentional. So it's an 11 personnel group on a 2nd and 8. Here's the tight end to a bunch set with Cooper Kupp and Rashid Shaheed. So what they've done is, number one, they've forced the nickel defender to be down to the field, the bottom side of our screen, number one. Number two, the boundary side safety is going to pre-roll before the snap back to a half-field alignment. So what that does is it forces the boundary side inside linebacker to expand with Shaheed's route. He turns it into a wheel. By the way, this is after Seattle's defense had forced a punt to open the second half. I think San Francisco maybe a 6 or 8 play drive where they had to punt. Shaheed motions across, and then immediately post-snap, Darnold is looking to the bottom side, his right, where you've got Cooper Kupp and the tight end. And all I think he's doing is trying to occupy this inside linebacker and or a potential safety who may be staring at him, Sam Darnold, after the snap. It's a screen to Walker into the boundary, really well designed. Shaheed runs that inside linebacker off. Gray Zabel gets out in front, does a nice job on, I think, the same inside linebacker that he was called for a hold on earlier. I believe this is Winters. or Winter. And Walker bounces this thing to the outside. Really well-designed screenplay. I like when it was called 2nd and 8. I really enjoy where it was called the most, meaning it's called into the boundary from an 11 personnel group with the tight end set to the field. Kind of get into a little bit of a qualm or complaint that I have about 2 particular play calls in the second half and 1 in the first. All of this is chronological, so we're on to the 5th possession, the same possession, the 5th possession in the third quarter. Seattle's up 10-3. It's a 21 personnel group, and all of this outside zone toss stuff, pin pull pitch that I'll show you in a little bit, the 3rd and 17 that Walker converts, all of that was extremely successful to the outside. Why? Oftentimes, Cooper Kupp and others at the wide receiver position were blocking in a fantastic manner on the edge. In this case, Kupp is going to pin down on this defensive end. Tight end and fullback Oots are both going to get out in front of Kenneth Walker and just going to use his athleticism to let him read and react to the blocking scheme as it occurs out in space. In addition, you've got Lucas, the right tackle, is working up to the second level immediately. And the way that this functions, or the way that this works out, is Lucas works up to the second level, the Mike backer. I actually kind of drew it to the Sam. And then the fullback will kind of almost a delayed double, if you will. So he will engage the same player that Lucas went after at first, and that just gave Walker, or kind of gave him more time, I should say, to make a decision, jump back inside, and spin off for a pretty big gain. This is something that I noticed earlier in the year, and if you've watched my content a lot, perhaps you'll recall me pointing it out. I think it was week 1 against San Francisco. I could be wrong. It may have been week 2 or week 3. This dynamic has occurred so often this season, and what I mean by that is a running back, sometimes a receiver or tight end who's caught the football, but in this case, a running back, Kenneth Walker, stacked up, and there's no one stops playing football for Seattle. They all get engaged, and they all try to drive the pile forward. It's a small detail, if you ask me. Perhaps it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but they just always seem to be surging or trying to push everything forward and finish the play. It appears to have been a coaching point from Clint Kubiak and the offensive staff to me. All right, so this will be one of my only or few complaints from this game from an offensive play calling standpoint. Of course, I'm no expert. Clint Kubiak, 1,000 times the coach that I am, but if you give me enough time with the film and I can kind of merge my live instincts or thoughts with what actually occurred on the film and give you some analysis that hopefully you appreciate. Same drive, right? 2nd and 2, and we're looking at a downhill run concept for Kenneth Walker. These just did not seem to be working nearly as well. It's basically duo, okay? You're getting a double team here by Lucas and Bradford on that D tackle, a double team here by Zabel and Sundell on the nose tackle. And the safety to the tight end side, again, it's an 11 personnel group. So you got 1 tight end on the field in Saubert and then 3 wide receivers. This safety is either going to A, be triggered downhill by the block of Saubert, or B, it's a predetermined blitz path for him. So 81 steps to the defensive end, who spikes to the inside as well. They almost really have 2 players in the same gap. So it's a little unusual, unsound perhaps, if you want to describe it that way. But it works out in their favor. The safety, I think it's Mustafa, downhill immediately, able to make contact with Walker. No gain on the play. I didn't think these downhill run concepts were anywhere near as effective. This 5th possession was ruined by 2 of them. In fact, this one, no gain to Walker, and the very next snap was Charbonnet downhill again for a tackle for loss, and they were forced to punt. Same play from the end zone angle. I should have pointed this out earlier, but the blue line just illustrates where the ball is, with this being the boundary or the short side of the field, and then this being the wide side, or what is commonly referred to as the field. The concept initially is downhill for Walker, but it's predetermined, if you ask me, that he's going to wind this back. And I'm offering that to you because of the blocking scheme with Cooper Kupp and the left tackle, Josh Jones. So what I mean is Walker's going to go downhill initially, and then he'll veer back to the side where Kupp is. And that's because of what I call this, Jill ISO. Some people would refer to it as an insert block by the wide receiver, in this case, Cooper Kupp. So the tackle stepping out to the defensive end, Kupp going to step to the inside, go get the Mike backer. We're talking about Winters right there. And then JSN going to go get the nickel who's set to the field. To me, that's predetermined for Walker to bring this ball back to the side. It's not chance or coincidence that that's where Kenneth Walker began to veer. The safety from the boundary recognized it. To me, it's a little disappointing in this moment, this particular possession, that Kubiak and those guys didn't say, hey, we're killing them on outside run stuff. 21 personnel zone lead or lead stretch, however you want to refer to it, and kind of wasted an opportunity here again to get a little bit more separation. When I say separation, I mean separation on the scoreboard. The gameplay, the game flow had already been determined that the Seahawks were the better team here, but you needed, in my opinion, I didn't feel comfortable until it was a 2-score game. At that point, I felt like, okay, the defense isn't going to give up 2 scores at this point when they've only given up 1 through 3 or 3+ quarters. This will actually be the last play that I diagram. It's one of my favorite concepts. Multiple teams across the NFL use it. It's the 3rd and 17. We're on to the 6th possession here again. The 5th possession, the previous drive, was wasted on that 2nd and 2 and 3rd and 2 downhill run concepts that the 49ers were able to stop. So this is a pin-pull pitch. First part of it, think like a domino effect, I guess. We'll go inside out, is Kupp pinning down on this defensive end. And then what that does is it allows the play side tackle, Lucas, to loop to the outside. And Seattle's run this multiple times on 3rd and long. It surprises me a little bit that the 49ers weren't prepared for it. And so what I mean is you've got a 2-safety alignment. It's 3rd and 17, so you want to be in a 2-safety alignment, a 2-high alignment. You want to try to limit the pass play, not give them the opportunity to convert this thing through the air. Seattle, the way that they get this done, I really appreciate. So first, the 2 receivers down here, I think it's Bobo and JSN. They're going to double team the nickel DB. We're talking about right here. And then one guy's going to stay on the nickel, and the other guy, Bobo, is going to peel off to a second-level defender. Perfectly executed, if you ask me. San Francisco, sure, they're down a lot of talent on the defensive side. But the way that the Seahawks blocked things, the way those guys stayed on defenders, number one, and played with the right level of tenacity. Look, that's Cooper Kupp pinning down the defensive end. I think it's Huff. You've already got Walker and Lucas out in space. Expert usage of Walker as a running back talent because he does see the field well. On downhill stuff, he has a tendency to bounce it at times. This is a spectacular representation, if you ask me, of what you got on this night at least from the offensive line and the receiver position. Those guys getting up to the 2nd or the 3rd level. In this case, once again, it's Zabel and Sundell 12 yards down the field to get out in front of Walker and let him make this final cut off of. We're talking about those 2 blocks there that I have spot shadowed in orange. All right, we'll do the end zone angle of this one. Like I said, this will be the last play that I talked about, and then I'll give you some summary thoughts or evaluations at the end. I prefer at this point to kind of just get directly into the film within the first minute, for various reasons. This is the same play from the end zone angle, like I said, 3rd and 17, and it's trips to the field. So again, this is the where the ball is located right there. The boundary or short side is to our right, the Seahawks left. The field is here. Now at the NFL level, that some people would say that doesn't matter as much because there's only 18 feet 8 inches from that hash, 18 feet 6 inches, from that hash to that hash versus at other levels of football like high school, you're talking about 53 feet overall. They're going to create a ton of space here in a variety of ways, not just on this play, but throughout the whole game. I think they took advantage of these wider aligned defensive ends that Salah likes to use in San Francisco and the Jets before he got fired. So here is Kupp with perfect alignment pre-snap, being able to pin down on that defensive end. When I say alignment, I mean look at how wide he is. He couldn't execute this block if he was here, right? Because he doesn't have leverage. So perfect alignment outside of that defensive end. Lucas able to get out in front, and there you have your 2 most athletic linemen, the center and the left guard, getting out on people. Maybe they don't hit home runs, these 2 guys on these types of blocks, not just this play, but they hit a lot of doubles. And the effort, to me, is obvious for the guys who are blocking. Kenneth Walker, I think he's a guy who could carry this team in the play. Both him and Charbonnet. I don't mean to distinguish between the two. This run game to me, I think, is by design egalitarian, and the way it should be, because they're both talented dudes. Maybe they're slightly different from one another. Walker's skill set, I think, fits this concept, the pin pull, maybe a little bit better than Charbonnet. But look, Charbonnet busted a 27-yarder on the first possession that I showed you to put Seattle up 7-0. Here's some of my observations first about what's happening with the offense. Throughout most of the year, I think it was pretty accurate when people said, hey, look, Seattle's committed to the run game. But what they're really doing is forcing you to stay cognizant of it, trying to stop it, and then punishing you with play actions. Well, against San Francisco, 39 carries for 180 yards. Walker was at 6.1, so higher than Charbonnet, but Charbonnet did bust the 27-yarder. The last 3 weeks, you're talking about 171, 63, and then 180 on the ground. So 170.3 by my math. How are they getting this done? I think I've emphasized this part. I'll give you 4 bullet points, maybe 5. The first one, the quickness of the offensive line in getting out on people. The matchup with them and the 49ers almost kind of invites that. What I mean is those wide defensive ends. It almost kind of invites the guards being able to get up. As long as the lagging offensive lineman, whoever's left behind, whoever's not getting help via a combo, can handle their one-on-one, and they did so. Number 1. Number 2, all the pin down stuff, perfectly executed. Whether it was Kupp, I think Bobo was a pin down blocker on one of them. I agree with Sam Darnold. I'd like to see Bobo incorporated into the pass game a little bit more. Remember the preseason, how spectacular he looked. I'm not saying he's a 50, 60 catch guy in any particular year, but I think he's a better pass receiver than his stats probably bear out. Sure as heck is, a great blocker. And that goes along with point number 2 here. The willingness and the effectiveness of the wide receiver blocking just kind of enhances or influences the yards per carry as they get downfield. Certainly everyone was very physical, right? But the technical way that the wide receivers blocked was important. They had great angles of approach, great steps, particularly on those pin down blocks. And I think they were just superior in their preparation than the 49ers defense was, at least as it stands or as it relates to the run game. I think those first 2 points lead into the third one. Again, point number 1 about the offensive line getting out on people. Point number 2, the receivers and the tight ends blocking well downfield, but the manner in which they got it done, showing proper technique. And that, to me, means they're well coached across the board. The offensive line, receivers, tight ends, fullbacks, and then no turnovers is a huge key. If I did my cursory research correctly, the Seahawks are 4-0 when they don't commit a turnover in 2025. They beat the Jags, I believe, without a turnover. That's the number 2 seed in the AFC. They've also got wins over playoff teams in the Texans and the Rams with 4 and 3 turnovers in each game. Basically, if Seattle doesn't turn the football over and they can run the ball anywhere near this level, 170 per game, they're going to be very, very difficult to beat. Are they committed to this style against every team they face? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that they'll be able to run the ball on the Eagles' defense like this, or maybe the Rams. But on this night against the 49ers, I was impressed with their ability to shift gears and stay committed to this style when it's working. Okay, stay true to it. So many times at the NFL level and other levels of football as well, offensive coordinators, play callers will find the run game working and kind of move away from it. Darnold was 20 of 26 passing. The ball only touched the other team's DB's hands once. That was a play action boot to his left that he kind of throws over JSN, but I think someone's kind of in the window there. But the last piece or the last point that I'll make here is I want to see more 21 personnel play action. So fullback on the field with a tight end, whether it's Barner or Saubert. I like 12 personnel. 12 personnel ace has been my favorite formation for this team this year. They've shown a variable run game and a really explosive play action pass game out of that formation. I'll try to link up. I think I've done 2 videos on that formation this year. I'll try to link that up if you want to go check it out from earlier in the year to kind of compare it. The lead zone stuff, I think, is going to really draw people's attention, number 1. Number 2, you see the reaction that teams are going to offer, like the 49ers, rolling a safety down post-snap in a predetermined manner, not based on a read, to try to stop the run. If Clint Kubiak and if the offense can avoid turnovers and Clint Kubiak can consistently be generating new first downs, he can give Sam Darnold some of those big play-action pass opportunities to really exploit those coverage rotations and spinning down to try to stop the run. Finally, my favorite run play individually here was the 3rd and 17 conversion to Walker. It's easy for me to say this. I think I referred to it in the reaction video Saturday night. I kind of knew it was coming. It's a great scheme. I believe that they've used it 4 or 5 times this year. I think they converted one against the Panthers and maybe got really close to converting one around week 9 or 10, but I don't recall who the opponent was. It's a great scheme. A ton of teams use it at the NFL level, mostly into the boundary from 11 personnel, so like away from the nickel defender. In any case, this is my film study look at the Seahawks run game, how they were able to control the entirety of the 60 minutes against the 49ers. I feel like the score doesn't necessarily reflect the separation between these two teams, at least on that night. In any case, if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, I'll try to have something out on the Seahawks defense Monday night, but it could, flow into Tuesday. To be honest with you, my production time has severely increased here on this channel as a result of some of the things that YouTube and the NFL is doing in terms of content moderation. But if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section. And then finally, if you think other Seahawks fans would like to look at the film, some of the points that I make, as well as the plays that I use to illustrate my overall points and how Seattle was able to get this done, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.